Good morning, good Wednesday morning. Here we go, ready to rock this place with some wisdom. Good morning, gentlemen. Shay, I sent a late edition to the huddle. It was a picture that the prince is in town.
2 seconds. I'll have it. 2 seconds.
What are the chances that there was a Nudelberg crossing in the Miami airport?
That is correct. It was, first of all, yesterday was a day. Shout out to everybody coming in this morning. Good morning. Good morning. Shout out to the show yesterday. Great job, Lori. Sorry that I could not catch that live and be a part of it, but it was really awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Amanda this morning. I've seen all of her content showing up in my feed, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So I know you're working hard at it. Keep up the great work. It's really great stuff. I enjoy seeing it. And yesterday,
Amanda's out of that Bank United crowd. So
I know she is. I know she is.
Jerry Latrento laying down the tracks.
Very well done. And yesterday was a day. I mean, getting up yesterday, getting to Miami Airport, which was an absolute cluster, but it was great to get Kai. And then on our way out, of course, Jake was on his way out west to go to his ski trip. And we happened to be like 2 gates away from each other. So we were able to see each other in the airport, which, do you remember the last time that happened to you and I?
I was passing through Detroit Airport.
That is correct. It was the Detroit airport. And you and I was heading back to Lafayette, and you were heading, I think, back to West Palm. And we got to connect for a minute while we were in the airport there. So you never know where you were.
We were in the same terminal.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Crazy shit. So it was very cool. There's a couple of things that I'm going to jump into today that are just happened. They're random. And this is the way life is. I wasn't feeling so great last night, so I kind of laid low. I did not make the United Way event, which is very rare for me. But I just said to myself, all right, pump the brakes, lay low, do something just for yourself. And I got into a Beatles documentary, and I got tons to share, but we could start that conversation by Kai jumping out of his comfort zone and taking a flight for the first time.
It was really awesome. It was really awesome. Super proud of him for doing it. And, it's when you push anybody out of their comfort zone, there's just some fundamentals to it. It's much easier when you do it with an adult, in my opinion, because their brains are a little bit more well-rounded and a little bit more developed, so they can grasp things a little differently. But really, it was just about reminding him about being on a plane before. It was about talking to him about what his concerns were and preparing him for what to expect. And then let him know that feeling nervous or feeling whatever was comfortable and normal. And he got over his nerves. He did a great job getting on the plane, and they wheeled him out in a wheelchair, which I was like, why are they wheeling him out? Is everything okay? And then he popped off the chair, and it was a great moment to see him get out. And then his next words to me were, I'll never take a car again. And I was like, oh, look at what we've started.
That's right. So the whole idea is that all of the goodness in life comes from jumping out of your comfort zone. We'll talk more about that today as it pertains to the Beatles, some great stuff. We're going to still continue the conversation about sleep. But before we do, we got to wake up.
Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Did you know me? Maybe then now listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more back to thinking, top of thinking ahead. Come on now.
Good morning to everybody rolling in. So great to see the huddlers doing stuff with each other. But as I said, I got into this 2016 documentary 8 days a week. the Beatles are just the most amazing story of, culture change, doing things different, things that had never done before. The story is so rich in stuff that you can take away. There was one particular scene where they interviewed Elvis Costello, and it was just after the Beatles had stopped touring, got back in the studio, and started to get make real music again. Their take was, hey, 56,000 people was great, but it wasn't about the music. They were talking about people acting like idiots, running around screaming louder than they could actually sing. They were actually doing that through the PA system, which is amazing. Said it wasn't enjoyable to them. We're going to get off the road. We're going to make different music. Listen to this little clip about that bridge, and then we'll talk about getting out of your comfort zone.
My story, all about the girl who came to stay.
The first reaction to the new innovative sound of Rubber Soul was, I don't like this. I think they've lost their minds. What are they thinking? Or what's this?
She's the kind of girl who puts you down when friends are there, you feel a fool.
I kind of went from being a kid to being a teenager, so some of those things felt like the right thing, but it was still surprising this group of light kind of changed so much. There's a big jump from I Want to Hold Your Hand to when she told me she was young that pain would lead to pleasure.
Was she told when she was young that pain would lead to pleasure? Did she understand it when they said?
I didn't understand it at all when I first heard it. I didn't think it was any good. And then 6 weeks later, you couldn't live without the record. And that's goodness when you trust the people that make music to take you somewhere you haven't been before.
So that line for me, when you trust the people to take you somewhere you're not going on your own, drop the mic, man. That is what it's all about. Trust in every relationship is where it starts. So just interested in your comment because I was like, okay,
Yeah, I mean that's when you've talked about your board of trustees or your board of advisors that you go to, when you trust in investing and in coaching for yourself, that's athletics. And I talked about that as a coach is a lot of times, and even Coach Wanstatt talked about this with the Pygmalion theory. The people you're coaching or the people you're working with, they don't see the vision you see. They don't see what you see in them. And it forces you to push them out of their comfort zone. It forces you to encourage and challenge and continue to support and teach and develop in order to develop what is possible for them, but what they might not know is possible. But also that thought in the beginning when he says, when I heard the first sounds, he goes, I don't like this.
What are they out of their mind?
I don't like this, he says. What is this? Have they lost their minds? So that reaction is so normal to everything of this doesn't feel right. I don't like it. It's not going to. But that is the getting out of the comfort zone, which allows you to go find the place that you never knew was possible.
Yeah, that was the second or maybe the biggest takeaway was whenever you do something new, you're the outlier. You're the one that look at people say, what is that? That's crazy. Don't do it. So I had a conversation yesterday with Joanne French. You remember Joanne?
Yep.
And they're in a sales role, leadership. They've done great. But I was unpacking some of the new modern stuff that we talk about. And you can see like, wow, like if you don't know it, it sounds bizarre. What do you mean market myself? So I just love it. And then when you listen to the rest of that show, and I am highly touting, jump back into that, the radical changes in their music, they kept pushing forward. They kept changing. And you did that in football. I do that in sales and in prospecting. But if you're not pushing forward, you're going to get stuck. And when you get stuck, you get run over.
Or you become complacent. Like that to me is you may have something that's really good that allows you to reach the mountaintop. But if you think what got you there is going to keep you there, you are sorely mistaken. You have to find ways to iterate. You have to find ways to look at everything you do. I had this conversation with somebody I was coaching yesterday. They were like, well, how often should I really be looking at my activity to be evaluating whether or not it's working? And I was like, every week. I was like, you might not change. I was like, but if you don't look at what you did every week, then you are allowing complacency, you're allowing monotony, you're allowing going through the motions to take place. If you constantly evaluate what's happening, which is the biggest difference between athletic performance and business performance, is not every behavior is evaluated as critically in the business world as it is in the athletic world. I don't care what sport you're talking about.
So what's interesting is that in a lot of the coaching engagements I get into, people are waiting for every week for there to be this like breakthrough or this monumental thing. No, it's actually staying the course. It's actually, Amanda says, always go for more. Not necessarily. It's always go.
Right.
Just get in a pattern. 5 of these doesn't mean you need to do 10. 5. When you get in the gym, you're not doing one day, you're doing everything, and then you don't go to the gym for a month. Just get in there and do push-ups and sit-ups and,
consistent behavior. Yes.
Yeah, the consistency. And that's what the Beatles did. They were true to the music. The other takeaway, which I have to talk about, was they were absolutely committed to the power of the group, not individually. In the beginning, and Paul said it, nothing could get done until all 4 voted for it. Yep. So all of the iterations came from that collaboration, sitting in the room, doing the work and say, all right, we'll move in this direction until, unfortunately, the end. But
which I don't think there's ever a substitute for that collaboration and that creativity, which, there's some people who will talk about, we should never go back to working in the office. We should never have to do that again. I disagree. I think there's no substitute for being in a place together as a group when you need to be creative, when you need to be collaborating. So, there's a time and a place for everything. Without that collaboration, they don't end up where they are and push their music forward so many times and become probably the best rock and roll band of all time.
And the last thought from it, because there's hundreds that I was writing down, but for today, the last one was they had somebody who was their outside eyes. They didn't start believing their own bullshit. They had someone who was their manager, somebody who traveled with them and said, hey guys, here's what the reality is. You can think what you want, but, and John had made a really bad comment, sort of tongue in cheek, but at one point they were bigger than Jesus. The church was losing. And he was like, oh, we're bigger than, said it tongue in cheek. People went bananas, burning their albums and stuff like that, until somebody on the outside said, hey, John, you got a responsibility. People are taking everything you say. So just so many takeaways.
I think, another great takeaway is that they weren't doing it to make the greatest album ever. They were doing it because they were in love with the process of making music. Yeah. They loved being in the studio. They loved trying new sounds and mixing new sounds. When you look at creative people, or you look at people that create anything of significance, they're in love with the process of it. So like where D says, it's never enough, keep going. That's because it's not about the quantitative, the quantitative outcome. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the results. It's about the quality of what you do. It's about the behavior of doing it. And when you're in love with what you do and how you do it, the results never really matter. That's why Tom Brady says, my favorite Super Bowl is the next Super Bowl. And the most important Super Bowl is the next one, because what he loves is the preparation. It's why he's coming back, because there's nothing that can replace that feeling for him of preparing and competing and going through the process of being successful.
So how is it that Tom Brady winds up in every conversation?
Because he's the GOAT.
It's the GOAT, man. It's amazing. So I found this quote the other day that just sort of falls in place. Shay, do we have this on a graphic?
No graphic. I don't think so.
No graphic. Okay, so we'll skip over the quote. Thank you. It was sent to you, and you usually do that.
Just read it.
My bad. So here's the quote. We cannot impart words of life to others if we don't possess them ourselves. And so, when I say to people, I go, listen, I have absolute certainty that what I coach works. You know why? Because I do it.
Right.
I do it. I see the results. I see the fact that, stuff is coming inbound and landing on my plate out of nowhere, which doesn't mean that I don't do my own process, but this daily haymaker that comes in is intoxicating. It's fun. It's like, wow, I wake up anticipating like good things to happen to me, not the other way around. So when the people got in the studio, they anticipated good music.
So this is why I think that City has been the best organization that we worked with when it comes to adoption and implementation. Why? Because Andrew Koenig is posting daily. Andrew Koenig is building his own brand daily. So the people in the organization can look at the top and go, okay, he's doing it. So it's not just lip service that this is something that we need to do that is really important, and it's important for everybody in the organization to do, yet for some reason, if it's important for everybody, the CEO is not doing it. CEO is doing it. So when they hear it, it's easy to go, okay, they're walking the walk. So they're not just talking the talk. I should do this too. That's the important part of leadership is I can't, if somebody's not doing what they say, and that's the biggest thing for me in LinkedIn is every coach, every brand expert, all of the hype around who they are, the first thing I do is go find out what they're doing. I go right to their page. I go right to their activity. I look at, are they doing what they say they're doing? And if it's not, then I know that it's bullshit.
Well, I mean, listen, I am prone to say to people, I go, would you get in the car with somebody that doesn't know how to drive? Right. Seriously, if you're going to learn it from somebody who does it. And for those of you who are in an organization where the leader is doing it, go back to kindergarten, guys and girls. Follow the leader, man. Do what leaders do. That's how you get that behavior, So, so many takeaways from the Beatles, so many great dialogues that sort of dictate the behavior. But you said it. They loved it. That's where they were comfortable, that they were creators. They were musicians. That's what they were. The rest of it, they weren't so comfortable with being in front of 56,000 people running around, yelling and screaming. That was not an art form that they made.
Well, that's not why they did the music. I think that's the difference. I don't care if you talk about entertainment, if you talk about sports, if you talk about business, the greatest, like even Steve Jobs. Why was Steve Jobs able to overcome so much adversity and rebuild and redo? Because he was in love with the process. He was in love with all that came with doing the research, creating something new, battling the adversity, trying to get people to understand what it was and developing. If you're not into that, if you're in a sales role and you're not into having conversations, you are in the wrong business.
I love that you said that, because I love the fact that when I do my temperature check, you go to your car, you check the oil, or someone should, I'm checking the oil or the engine pressure of my business. And I saw that a lot of what was in the pipeline had either closed or moved off. Ding, 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 warning light. It's in your car. It's on your dashboard that says, you got to get your shit in gear, bro. That didn't scare me. That actually excited me, because I love getting in the sandbox and finding and digging and doing and getting right back to the core of what we teach people. So to your point, if you're not loving it, that's how people get sick. When they go to work or they go to do something that they're not engaged in, which on the other end of it, and this was a conversation I had with a coaching client yesterday, when you get to the point where you don't need other people's validation, the Beatles weren't looking for your validation. They didn't care what Elvis Costello thought. They didn't care what the critics said. This is what we're doing. This is good music. This is good content. This is good, all the way down the line. So, this took us most of the show. I had written a whole show.
So I think the other point of that is, as you develop your organizations and you move people into leadership roles, leadership is not about results. Leadership is about the innate responsibility to help others. That to me is what makes you a good leader, is that you're obsessed with the development of other people. You're obsessed with the success of other people, because that's what the process is. If you don't enjoy evaluating other people's work, if you don't enjoy spending time with them, figuring out how to connect with them and how to communicate with them in order to develop, you're never going to be a great leader. Just as the same in sales, if you don't like being curious about other people, if you don't like having new conversations, if you don't like trying to problem solve for people, you're never going to be good in that role. So a lot of times our own vision of what we should be or what we think we should be doesn't actually match the things that we like to do. We just have well, I need to be this, I should be that. At the end of the day, fall in love with the process of whatever it is, and you'll be great at whatever it is.
And Les Gusky with the absolute home run takeaway, man. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Amazing that years and years and years later, 50, 60 years later, the music is spot on. It's solid. It's great. Go listen to a Beatles song now. And here's the one. I didn't load it, but if you need help,
I need somebody.
Not just anybody. Call the Nudelbergs.
Let's go.
Take us home, Shay.
We want music, or we want the?
Well, let's get down to business. We'll do everything.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had